If Hawker Beechcraft has financial worries, they're certainly not evident at EBACE. The airframer has sold 10 aircraft in the past 3 days. Hello, I'm David Lombardo, and this is AIN TV. The big news at EBACE today is the orders have started coming in. Hawker Beechcraft has sold a Hawker 4000 to Bucharest, Romania-based Aviation, a second to Orion, Malta, and a third to JoinJet, the latter following it up with an additional order for a 400 XPR. By Tuesday afternoon, Hawker Beechcraft also inked the sale of 6 King Air 350s on a 3-year plan to Hawker Pacific. Cessna also weighed in with an order for 11 172 Skyhawks ordered by Russian pilot training school VIAZ. While hard orders always make for a good show, make no mistake, there are storm clouds on the European horizon. Therefore, we're dedicating this newscast to bringing our viewers up to date on 3 major issues. Our sister publication, EBACE Convention News, sent journalists Liz Moskrop, James Winbrandt, and Bill Carey to research 3 of the most troublesome developing issues. Liz looked into illegal charters, James tackled the EU's impending emissions trading scheme, and Bill researched the single European sky. We start with Liz Moskrop and how illegal operators may be undermining the European charter industry. About that.
Well, the first thing, David, is that nobody actually knows the extent of the problem here. We've heard figures over the show ranging from 6 to 8% of flights in Europe are illegal, business aviation flights, right up to 30%. And the trouble is nobody actually knows because nobody can tell if a flight is illegal or not before it starts. And it's a big issue. Operators are concerned that people are flying without having AOCs and all the safety and maintenance requirements that you need if you've got a ticket. And yeah, there's been a great session this afternoon.
What came out of the session? I mean, were there suggestions made on what to do? Is there a plan?
Again, it was really open for debate because we have 27 member states here and the onus is on, at the moment, the member state to prosecute the person or the flight, the operator, which is illegal. And that's very, very difficult. So one of the suggestions was put the onus on the operators, perhaps on the airfield, people on the ramp. Another suggestion, which was rather controversial and a little draconian, was to prosecute pilots who were caught operating the flights, that would be tough.
Well, I think if you prosecute the pilots, basically the operator is always going to be able to find somebody to fly the airplane. It would seem that logic would say that you would want to go after the operator who's actually soliciting to do it. I mean, did that come up in the discussion?
That did, but then again, of course, if you're a low-hour, low-time pilot and you might lose your license before your career even begins, it might give you food for thought. I'm not advocating that. It was one of the suggestions that came up, as was greater information sharing, but that's vague. We need actually more concrete suggestions, and I actually had to leave the seminar as people were debating that. It's going to go on long time, this one.
So the seminar's over. Ultimately, what ended up happening? Is there any action item at all?
Yes, people are going to EBAA are in the process of conducting a study to find out, first of all, what is the extent of the problem. People are going to gather together again. There is a movement among many of the operators. In fact, there's a LinkedIn group. If you want to find out more about this in Europe, go to LinkedIn. There is a LinkedIn group especially about this, and people would welcome comments and suggestions because the industry does want to address it here.
While illegal operators may well be shrinking the bank account of legitimate charter operators, the biggest financial drain is yet to come. It will be in the form of the emission trading scheme. We asked James Winbrandt about where we are on that critical issue.
This is actually the first year of implementation. Operators now are supposed to be monitoring their use, and they're going to have to report and pay next year. And there was just here at EBACE a seminar with representatives of the EU and some operators, and it's clear it's still a very contentious issue, and there are a lot of questions about how and even if it's going to be implemented.
Now, my understanding is this is not just for EU operators. This is anyone in the world who flies here?
That is absolutely correct. So we also have representatives from the NBAA here who are very concerned about the impact, and U.S. operators are very concerned. They've been voicing their concerns to the NBAA, and that's being transmitted here at EBACE as well.
Well, it seems to me the problem here is going to be, doesn't each country have independent control? How does this work? It's a patchwork.
Well, that's something about the EU. The EU does have overall authority, but then you do have individual countries that have their own rules and indeed are going to be able to apply their own actions against those who do not comply, and it's unclear how that's all going to be played out. We heard from operators today who are already trying to implement the plan, and they say that in some cases they're dealing with 3 different countries that all have their own interpretations of the law.
And what about how they charge? The airlines are in this too. Is there some sort of differential for corporate aircraft over airlines, or how does that all play out?
Well, there's a feeling among the general aviation and business aviation community, more than a feeling, that there's clear discrimination against corporate operators and private operators. Airlines and commercial operators have much more latitude before they come under the rules of compliance than do private operators.
And in the end, where is all this going? How is this going to be resolved?
Well, now the hope is ICAO, a UN organization that has done nothing about this for 10 years. But the situation has become so intractable. We have 140 nations of the world outside of the EU that are threatening a trade war. So there is some hope with the dire circumstances that maybe this will galvanize ICAO to take some action and come up with a global plan that actually does something for the environment.
James, it sounds like a complicated mess to me.
I think that's the way everyone feels about it.
Finally, the rules are about to change for the time-honored first-come, first-served air traffic control system. Bill Carey gives us the inside story.
Well, David, aviation as we know it has always been administered on a first-come, first-served basis. You contact ATC and you get your instructions. But today, in a panel discussion on the Single European Sky ATM research program, we learned that European aerospace planners are looking toward more of a best equipped, best served approach that will require business aircraft operators in the relatively near future to equip in order to get the corresponding services that are available from ATC.
Does that mean, is that sort of coded to say the airlines are going to end up with priority?
Well, if the airlines are kind of going through the same dilemma, trying to make the business case to invest in the new avionics required, whether it be for ADS-B, whether it be for datacom, whether it be for GPS augmentation to their FMS, and it's the same fight that business aviation faces as well.
And what about the small guy? What about the private pilot who uses an aircraft maybe for business, maybe for pleasure, just flying around Europe? What's going to happen to him?
Well, for the smaller aircraft, they, may not be able to operate to instrument approach airways or airfields if they don't have the equipment to do that. Visual flight rules will be pretty much what they're consigned to.
Is this just entirely up to who? Eurocontrol? Who actually is responsible for this?
It's now it's under development. The Single European Sky ATM research program is into development, moving toward the deployment phase. These requirements are expected to take effect beginning in 2014, and operators will need to think about equipping in the next decade or so.
So is it a foregone conclusion? Is there nothing that can be done about it, or no more input into it?
Well, one thing I thought interesting today was that Patrick Key, the executive director of the SASAR joint undertaking, which is the public-private entity that is overseeing the SASAR program, really called out to business aviation for more input, more collaboration on what the priorities of business aviation are. So I think there's an opportunity there that perhaps should be taken advantage of.
Thanks, Bill. Without a doubt, things are changing in Europe, and they may well not be for the better when it comes to business aviation. You can be sure that our flagship monthly publication, Aviation International News, will follow these stories closely and will keep you informed. Meanwhile, you can get full coverage of all the important news here at EBACE from our sister publication, EBACE Convention News. Also, be sure to watch today's interview with Stephen Grimes, CEO of London Luton's Ocean Sky FBO. Steve explains why he believes the timing is right for their £10 million investment in renovation and infrastructure upgrading, and what they're doing in anticipation of the upcoming Olympics. For AIN TV and EBACE Convention News, I'm David Lombardo, and thank you for turning to us for in-depth coverage of the issues that matter most to you.